Hey everyone, from our family to yours, Happy Easter.
Happy Easter! Happy Easter, everybody!
Oh my goodness. So this is where we're doing life now during quarantine. We're coming to the church. This is where it's all at. You know, this is a monumental day.
It is,
right?
Yeah.
Across the nation, this is the first ever digital Easter. Everywhere. What a different Easter. You know, normally, if you're at Harvest, we would do a giant Easter egg hunt.
An epic Easter egg
Epic.
hunt.
How many eggs did we do last year?
A million.
A million.
I don't know.
56,000.
Yeah, there we go. 56,000.
You know, here's what I want you to know, Harvest, is that just because it's different this year doesn't mean that it's not a great Easter. Yeah. I love the fact that the virus doesn't change the Easter story.
Yeah.
Jesus still rose. That power is still available today. And I hope it's a great Easter. The last couple of days have been so much fun, right? For our families.
Yeah, kids, I hope you enjoyed our Easter photo scavenger hunt on Good Friday, which was really cool. And then yesterday was Easter Jam.
Oh my goodness. So
much fun with the whole family.
So much fun. So listen, stay tuned. I have a big announcement for Easter, but it's in the message, so you can't cut out early. I promise you're not going to want to miss it. It is big. So, happy Easter, everyone.
Mom. Happy Easter, everybody.
Kids, pick up the eggs. Pick up the eggs, kids. Girls.
Easter egg hunt right here.
Easter egg hunt.
There's nothing in them.
Oh, I've heard 1,000 stories of what they think you're like, but I've heard the tender whisper of love in the dead of night, and you tell me that you're pleased and that I'll never run song. And I surrender all. And I surrender all. Lord, take control, 'cause I trust you. I'm letting go to give you everything and nothing less. My best and my all. You deserve my every breath in my life and my song. And I surrender all. I surrender all. And I surrender all. And I surrender all. And everything and nothing less. I give you everything and nothing less. Forever, everything and nothing less. My life is yours, completely yours. Everything and nothing less. I give you everything and nothing less. Forever, everything and nothing less. My life is yours, completely yours. Everything and nothing less. I give you everything and nothing less. Forever, everything and nothing less. My life is yours, completely yours. I surrender all. I surrender all. And I surrender all. And I surrender all.
Wow, what an incredible Easter already, and we're just getting started. If you're joining us for the first time and you'd like to connect, maybe you're new to experiencing Harvest and you'd like more information, or you want to just start a conversation with us, the best way to do that is to complete the online connection form. Fill it out and we'll send you a gift this week. If you hang around us for very long at all, you'll find out that we at Harvest love giving. In fact, we've partnered with GetBoxesOfHope.com to bring hope to homes in Albuquerque. We think hope can spread faster than this virus. I hope you would agree. We want you to know that your generosity helps us spread hope. And the easiest way for you to give is by giving online. We know that this current climate is challenging for many of you. We'd love to pray for you right now, specifically in the area of finances in your jobs. So can we take a moment and can we pray this morning? God, we just pray right now for every individual that's watching, every individual that's tuning in. God, in this time right now that is uncertain, we don't know what's going to happen next. God, we know that you are certain, that we can trust in you, that we can lean into you. And so we just pray that for families that are watching right now, that we would trust in you in every area of our lives, including our finances. God, we praise you and we thank you for this amazing day. Amen. Now get ready as Pastor Jason continues this series on love is greater than fear.
Hey friends, can you believe that it is Easter Sunday? And not only is it Easter, but all over the nation, this is the very first digital Easter, a virtual Easter. I don't think we'll ever forget this one. Now, normally, if we were together in a building, we would probably do something like this. I would say, "He is risen," and you would respond, "He is risen indeed." So why don't you help me this morning? I'll go ahead right now and proclaim, "He is risen." And would you help me by just coming on in the comments right now and just letting us know that you are here with us by responding, "He is risen indeed." I know this is an unusual Sunday, really, for all of us. A friend of mine sent me a text this week, though, that kind of put it in perspective. He said, "The first Easter wasn't celebrated by crowds. Jesus simply showed up among a small group who was practicing social distancing." Friends, I don't know where you are at this moment, but you are practicing social distancing. And my prayer all week long is that right now, at this moment, that Jesus would show up right where you are. In your living room, in your bedroom, in your kitchen, your car, wherever you are, that right now, Jesus would show up. Now, I do want to let you know that I have a big announcement, but it's not till later in the message. So I hope you'll stay with me because it's something you are not going to want to miss. Growing up, I would visit my papa's church. He pastored in rural Oklahoma. I loved to visit. We would go and spend a couple of weeks in the summer, and I loved it. He would take us catfishing, and he would take us to check on his cows. And for a boy growing up in Albuquerque, it really was kind of fun to get out and play like a cowboy. But I remember going to their little country church, and I have some very vivid memories of those visits. And for some reason, one of the things I remember so well are some of the songs that they would sing while we were there. And one of the songs, I don't know if you've ever heard it, it's an old hymn, but I won't sing it. I'll spare you the pain on this Easter Sunday. But this hymn went like this. It said, "I had a debt I could not pay. He paid the debt he did not owe. I needed someone to wash my sins away. And now I sing a brand new song, Amazing Grace, all day long. Christ Jesus paid the debt that I could never pay." Here's what I remember is in that little country church, normally 25, maybe 30 people, is that they would sing this song with so much passion, with so much enthusiasm. I mean, they would get really, really excited about this song. And I just have to admit to you today that as a young man, that I really didn't get it. I didn't understand why they were so excited. Now that I can look back, I have a little bit of a different perspective. And I think that one of the reasons that I didn't understand the passion they sang this song with is because I, up until that point, had never understood the weight of debt. After all, I was just a kid. Now, fast forward to the year 2000, and I meet my beautiful bride, Lisa. We get married in 2000, and we move into this tiny little apartment. I'm working a construction job, and she's finishing up school, so we have no money. Some of you right now, you can very easily remember that point in your life, and some of you right now are like, we are there right now. I just want to tell you, if you're there right now, I promise that it gets better. Over the next several years, things began to go well for us. Lisa got a job as a teacher, and our construction company began to grow. And as that happened, we began to gather, more stuff. We built a house, and we bought some newer vehicles. And in fact, at one point, we even bought a boat. Now, I know if you're in New Mexico, that might be strange to you, but boats, they're like cars on water. We were living in Texas. We had plenty of water around us. We were amassing some stuff. Now, fast forward again to 2008, and the economy begins to crash, and suddenly things begin to turn in our lives. All of a sudden, the banks are no longer lending money, and the customers that we were building for, now they can't close on their projects, and all of a sudden, we find ourselves stuck in the middle of what would become one of the most difficult seasons of our lives. And one of the reasons is that we found ourselves in debt up to our eyeballs. Have you ever been there? If you've ever been in debt, you know that it's more than just the money that you owe. There's an emotional toll that begins to weigh you down. For some, it turns up in sleepless nights as you lay awake trying to figure out how to calculate how to get out of this problem. For some, you slip into depression, or anxiety begins to come into your life, or stress begins to build, and then it begins to affect your marriage. There's all of these side effects that happen when you're carrying debt. I think that often when you're carrying debt, it feels like you're carrying a big weight around. I mean, it's just everywhere you go, you've got this weight. I mean, you go to church and you've got the weight. You're dropping your kids off to school and you've got the weight. You're cooking dinner and you've got the weight. And there's a couple of things I remember about this season in our lives. One of them is that the phone calls just never stop. I mean, they just call and and you block a number and they get a new number and they call from different states. And I'm telling you, the pressure, the weight, it just doesn't stop. It just keeps coming. The other thing I learned in that season is that the color of the envelopes that they're mailing to you with the paper that says you owe me, right? The color of the envelopes would actually change. They were trying to get my attention. They went from yellow to blue to green, and eventually bright red envelopes are showing up in my mailbox. There's this weight when you have debt. And instead of dealing with the debt, what we often do is we just reposition it. We just move it around, right? Financially, we get a loan, we refinance, we consolidate. But here's the reality. None of those things actually get rid of the debt. It simply moves it around. It provides maybe some temporary relief, but the weight is still there. Now, you're probably already thinking this, but no, I'm not going to preach about finances on Easter Sunday. But if you've ever been in financial debt, it helps us to understand the Easter story a little bit better. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 and 2 say this: Let us lay aside every weight. Let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross. I've come today, Easter Sunday 2020, the first digital Easter in history. I've come on this Easter Sunday to ask you if you would be willing to lay down the weight. Hebrews 12 talks about this. It says we should lay down the weight and the sin that so easily ensnares us. If you're wondering today what kind of a church you're tuning into, let me just tell you, you're tuned into a church that knows that in and of ourselves, we, including me as the pastor, we are not good people. We know that we are sinners. We're an imperfect people who are chasing after a perfect God. And here's what I also know, is that you aren't a good person either. I know the audacity on Easter Sunday for me to tell you through the internet that you are not a good person. I know some of you are right now, you're thinking, wait a minute, I'm letting you into my life right now, and you have the audacity to tell me I'm not a good person. Well, here's why. Let me help you. Let me explain. The world's full of nice people, But I don't think there's such thing in the earth as a good person. There's a lot of nice people. We're seeing that play out right now. We're seeing people who are volunteering and they're donating their time, and they're donating supplies, and they're making masks, and they're donating food. There's a lot of nice people in the world today, but there's no such thing as a good person. I'll prove it to you. If you have children, you'll understand this a little bit more, but we don't teach our children to do wrong. We actually have to do the opposite. We teach them to do what's right. I remember when our youngest was just about 4 or 5 years old, she went on a shopping trip with Lisa, and they were in a store, they were looking for some clothes, and my little daughter, she found a little purse that she really liked. She asked her mom if she could have the purse, and Lisa said, no, not today, we're getting these clothes, we don't really need to get that. They finished shopping, she made the purchase, and they made their way out of the store. And as they were walking away from the store, Lisa looked over at sweet little Eden, who had something hidden inside of her jacket. Lisa asked her what was there, and she kind of turned. She didn't want her to see it. Eventually, tears began to roll down her face as she pulls out the purse that she wanted from the store. Lisa marched her back into the store, asked for the manager, told the manager what had happened, and said, my daughter has something to say to you. And with big crocodile tears rolling down her face, she holds the purse out to the manager and she says, I'm sorry that I stole the purse. The manager says, oh, honey, it's okay. To which Lisa quickly interrupts and says, oh, no, it is far from okay. The manager kind of retreats a little bit. She takes the purse and they turn to go. And as they do, the manager looks at my wife and she says, I'm sorry, she's just so cute. And I would say this morning, she is cute, but she's a cute little sinner, just like you and I. Romans chapter 3 actually says it this way. It says, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. I love the word all here because it's a simple word. I mean, it's 3 letters. You don't have to study Greek to understand. Listen, all means all. It just means everyone, right? There is not one person on the planet who measures up to God. That's what Romans 3 says, is that all fall short of the glory of God. Now, I hope that for some of you right now, the light is beginning to come on in your heart, because what you might be understanding right now is that the weight of sin is what you've been feeling, what you've been trying to shake. And I'm hoping that today, on Easter Sunday, I'm hoping to help you to find some freedom, because I want you to know today that you don't have to live that way. The Easter story could be summed up this way: Jesus paid your debt. That's the Easter story. Jesus paid your debt and my debt, and now because our debt has been paid, there's a chance to live without the weight. Now listen, to live in freedom, it affects at least 4 areas of our life. So I just want to give them to you quickly today. Because Jesus paid the debt, we can lay down the weight of sin. This is what Hebrews 12 said. I want you to know today that Jesus paid your debt, and now you can live free from sin. Simply put, there was a payment that's due for our sin. Romans 6:23 says it this way: for the wages of sin is death. If someone commits a crime, there's a penalty that has to be paid. In the same way, each of us have broken God's law, and because of that, there's a penalty that has to be paid. But the Easter story reminds us that Jesus willingly went to the cross to pay that price for us. Why in the world would he do something like that? The answer is because he loves you. I love how the Apostle Paul said it in Galatians 2. He says, my old self has been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live, but Christ now lives in me. So I live in this earthly body by trusting the Son of God, watch this, who loved me and gave himself for me. Friends, Jesus died for us. Jesus said in the scriptures that he died for us. What that means, that word for means that he died instead of. He died in our place. He did that because He loves us. He didn't want you and I to have to pay the penalty for our sins, because the reality is we couldn't afford to pay that bill anyway. Mark chapter 10 says this, "For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." You have to understand that in the time that this was written, there were slaves and there were free people. And so this word ransom that's used here when it says he came to give his life as ransom for many, that word ransom would actually come from the slave market. What would happen is a kind person might want to help a slave find freedom, and so they would have to go to the slave market and they would have to pay the ransom price before the slave could be set free. Can I tell you today that Jesus went to the cross and he paid the ransom price for you and for me. And because of that, we can be free from sin. Here's the second thing. Today, we can lay down the weight and we can be free from shame. Often when we do something wrong, we feel something. We feel some guilt. That's how God made us. That's that little voice inside of us that helps us to know when something is off. Listen, guilt is okay. 2 Corinthians 7, I love how it says it in the Passion Translation. It says, God designed us to feel remorse over sin in order to produce repentance that leads to victory. This leaves us with no regrets. I want you to know today that guilt is okay, but shame is not. Renowned author Brené Brown often writes on the topic of shame, and here's a quote from her. She said, "I believe that guilt is adaptive and helpful. It's holding something that we've done or failed to do up against our values and feeling the psychological discomfort. I define shame as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. Something we've experienced, done, or failed to do makes us unworthy of connection. I don't believe shame is helpful or productive." I would agree with Brené Brown. I might say it this way. Guilt says I made a mistake. And who hasn't made a mistake, right? Guilt says I made a mistake. Shame says I am the mistake. Shame takes on its guilt at a whole nother level. Shame puts it on, and now it becomes your identity. I want you to know today, if you are feeling shame, maybe from yesterday or from 10 years ago, I want you to know that the Easter story says that you can be free because Jesus paid your debt. He took care of your shame. He also took care of the things that we become addicted to. I want you to know today that the Easter story helps us understand that we can lay down the weight of addiction. We can be free from addiction. John chapter 8 is an interesting story because Jesus is talking to some religious people and he calls them slaves, and they kind of get offended. They say, "Hey, we're not slaves." And Jesus makes this statement, John chapter 8, he says, "Everyone who sins is a slave to sin." Every one of us, if we sin, we become a slave to that sin. I want to talk to those of you this morning who there's something that has a hold of your heart. There's something that's controlling how you spend your time and how you spend your resources and where you go and what you think about and how you talk. I want to talk to those of you that would say today that there's something that has an addictive power in your life, because what I want you to know is that when Jesus died and rose again, the Easter story, when that happened, he broke the power of addiction. And today I want you to know that you can be free. You don't have to live addicted. I just tell you, a pet peeve of mine is when people say something like this. They say, "Pastor, you don't understand. This is just how I am." They might even go farther and say, "Pastor, you don't understand how long I've been this way. It's always been this way. As far back as I can remember, it's been this way." Some people will even add something to it like this. They'll say, "You don't understand, Pastor. It's been this way for so long because my dad was this way, and his dad was this way, and his dad was this way," as if it's licensed to stay the way that we are. Listen to me, friends. I want you to hear me today. One of the things that I love about the gospel is that it is the power for you and I to change. You can be set free today from life-controlling addiction. And finally, you can be set free today from fear. This is our series we're in right now. Love is greater than fear. Hebrews chapter 2 says this, because God's children are human beings, that's you and I, God made himself flesh and blood. For only as a human being could he die, and only by dying could he break the power of the devil who had the power of death. Only in this way, listen, only in this way could he set free all who have lived their lives as slaves to the fear of dying. We've been saying for a couple of weeks now, love is greater than fear. Here's where the rubber meets the road. There are some scary things happening in the world today. The virus is real. The numbers are climbing. It's highly contagious. People are dying. We're not denying any of what's going on. But listen to me. We can live fearlessly in spite of the circumstances that are happening around us. Often, a person's greatest fear is the fear of death. This is what it's talking about in Hebrews when it says that we could be set free as slaves to the fear of dying. Is it so often we live our lives in such a way that we live in fear of dying, so we don't take risks. We don't want to push the envelope. We're very careful. We're calculated. Listen, I'm all for the social distancing, but there's some people today who are taking it way too far because they're not making a decision out of wisdom. It's out of fear. It's, I don't want to catch this because I don't want to die. And the basis of that is that when you know what happens after you die, you no longer fear death. This is why Philippians 1 says, to live is Christ and to die is gain. How can this be? To die is gain? It's because death is not the end for those who believe in Jesus. When Jesus set us free from the fear of death, I also believe that he set us free from all other fears. So I'd like to extend an offer to you today. I'd like to offer you a life without sin. I'd like to offer you a life without shame. I'd like to offer you a life without addiction. And I'd like to offer you a life without fear. But I don't want you to know just the things that life will be without. I also want you to know what kind of life you're signing up for. I'd like to offer you, this is how Jesus said it in John 10:10. He said, I have come that you may have life to the full. I've come today to offer you a full life. In fact, right where you are today, if that's the kind of life that you would like, if you'd say, Pastor, today I'm ready to put the weight down. I'm ready. I've been carrying this thing around and I've been repositioning it and I'm tired of carrying it down. Let me tell you today, the Easter story says that we can put the weight down. If that's you today, I'm going to ask you to say a very simple prayer with me right now. I'm going to lead you in this prayer. In fact, if you're maybe in a small group right now, a few of you, maybe just everyone in the room, you can say this together. Just this is how we do it in our church. I just ask everyone to say it so that everyone feels comfortable. But would you just, if that's you today, say, Pastor, I'm ready to lay down the weight. I'm ready to accept the gift that Jesus has for me on this Easter Sunday. He died and he rose again and he broke the power of sin and he broke the power of fear and he broke the power of addiction. And today I'm not going to live in shame any longer. I'm going to accept the full life. Would you pray this prayer with me? Would you just say right now, say, Jesus, I accept this free gift of salvation. I ask you to come into my life right now. Today, Lord, I lay down the weight. I recognize that I've been carrying it around, but you paid the price so that I could lay the weight down. Today, Lord, I lay it down. I surrender my life to you. In Jesus' name, amen. Friend, I want to be the very first one to congratulate you on that decision. That's the best decision that you will ever make. In fact, I would love to partner with you as you begin this journey of following Jesus. If that's you today, if you've said this prayer today, if you'd help us out and just complete the online card there, the connection form, if you do that for us, then that'll let us know and we can get in touch with you. We can send you resources. We can help you on this journey. Now, I have just one more thing this morning. The last words that Jesus said as a man here on this earth. He was hanging on the cross, and John 19 records this as he's hanging on the cross. The last words that he utters are this: "It is finished." And then it says that he bowed his head and he gave up his spirit. This phrase, "it is finished," you have to understand the historical context. In that day and time, if you went to the local market and you bought some vegetables or some bread or whatever groceries you got, often they would just keep a tally, a tab of the things that you're purchasing. And then when you came in, you'd get paid, and you came in and you wanted to settle your bill, they would check the bill, you would pay the bill, and they would literally write across the bill these words that Jesus uttered from the cross. They would write across that, "It is finished." In other words, they're saying the debt has been paid in full. You no longer have to have the weight of this. You no longer have to dodge me when you see me in the store. You no longer have to worry about this. Your debt has been paid in full. Now, I started this morning by talking about the weight of debt, and I know that weight well. Many of you do as well. But here's what I want to tell you today. I'm so excited about this announcement. It's taken everything for me to hold it until right now. But here's how we at Harvest are celebrating Easter 2020. Today, we're celebrating that Jesus paid the debt that we could not pay by paying off someone else's debt that they are unable to pay. Let me explain it. Every day in America, 79 million people have to make the decision between paying their medical bills and paying basic needs like food and shelter. When I read that statistic, I said, that's not right. There's got to be something we can do about it. So we've actually been researching this for quite a while, actually a couple of years, and we found a company that we're partnering with, and this is what they do, is they identify the people that need the help the most, that are at or below the poverty line, that are burdened by the weight of medical debt, and they use their buying power to purchase large quantities of debt so that they can help set these people free. And when I found this out, I said, this is what we have to do. We are going to celebrate Easter by paying off someone else's debt. And so I'm excited to tell you today, Harvest, that because of your generosity this Easter, this week, we have helped pay off just over $500,000 of medical debt right here in New Mexico across 9 different counties. And in the coming weeks, these families will get a letter that says to them, your debt has been paid in full. In other words, it is finished. Now, I have to admit that I've been waiting for this moment to make this announcement. And it feels a little anticlimactic because now I'm in an empty room. I'm announcing it to empty chairs this morning. Now, I have a good imagination. So in my mind right now, wherever you are throwing a party. You're high-fiving one another. You're cheering wildly. You're going crazy. I mean, that's just what I imagine. I hope that's what is happening. But listen, if you know me, you know that I love a party, okay? So, and listen, I just think it's not a party unless you've got some confetti. And so I got the biggest confetti cannon that we could find during the quarantine, and I want to make this announcement again, and I'm just in my head pretending the party that you're having right now, and I'm just going to have my own little party right here, because I want to say again that this week, to celebrate Easter, we have paid off over $500,000 in medical debt for people across the state of New Mexico in 9 different counties, and in the coming weeks, they're going to get a letter that says, friend, your bill has been paid in full. Yeah! Now that's how you make an announcement during quarantine. Friends, I love that we're celebrating this Easter, but can I leave you with one thought? as exciting as this is, as excited as I am today, as all this confetti and the fun and the high fives, can I tell you that today there is a bigger party that's happening, and it's happening in heaven for every one of you who just a few minutes ago said a prayer and you invited Jesus to come into your life, and in that moment he paid the price and he wrote across the bill of your heart, "It is finished." The debt has been paid in full. Friends, this is an epic Easter. I know it's a different Easter, but it's an epic Easter because of the decision that you just made. And I believe all across our city and all across our nation, thousands and thousands of people are making the same decision, because what we're saying today is this. We're saying love is greater than fear.
Thanks so much for joining us today for Easter at Harvest Online.
Friends, we love you, we're praying for you, and we know we're going to get through this together. Normally on Sundays, I would leave you with this blessing, so I thought I would do it again. May the Lord bless you, keep you, cause his face to shine upon you, give you grace now and forever. Now, Harvest, go be the church.